What is it that we are living in the golden age of? This one's pretty specific, but underwater cave exploration. Cave diving got its start back in the late 60s, early 70s. It developed a reputation for being extremely dangerous, mainly due to the lack of training and general unreliability of equipment. Lots of people died and valuable lessons were learned from the causal factors. Today, equipment is extremely reliable if properly maintained. The likelihood of experiencing a major failure is slim. Training has also developed exponentially to the point where a well-trained cave diver with high quality, well-maintained equipment takes on more risk driving to the dive site than actually cave diving. To an extent, more complex profiles change the math a bit, but most risk can be mitigated. As a result of this, along with technological innovation, exploration is blowing up. Highly experienced teams are laying miles of survey line at depths exceeding 300 feet. I've seen pictures and video of previously unexplored cave passages that have seen fewer people than the surface of the moon. There are connections waiting to be made and entirely new systems waiting to be discovered. We may have largely explored the surface of the Earth, but we know very little about what's underneath the surface, as well as under the oceans. True exploration is alive and well, and the only barrier to how far someone can go is how much time, effort, money, and dedication they're willing to put into it. Well, I guess we saw recently in Thailand a demonstration of many of the things you said. I think we are getting into the beginnings of one for exercise science, which is good and bad. As an amateur competitive cyclist, I've got more training science and more tools available to me than ever before. Every time I ride, I have 6 data fields displayed on my bike computer that can tell me exactly what's going on with my body. I can track my heart rate 24/7. The computer programs can look at my physical performance, recorded during my ride in 1-second intervals, and do a detailed analysis that simply wasn't possible 20 years ago. I've got more exercise science available to me via free software, blogs, and podcasts than professional cyclists with full-time coaches did in the mid-90s. Not to mention, way better bike technology as well. My mid-range road bike outperforms the bikes that Lance was winning the Tour on in every way. Weight, aerodynamically, rolling resistance. The downside of this is that the level of completion has increased. You show up to your first race, and there are guys in the field who train 15 hours a week all winter long with every available gadget using a scientifically optimized training regimen and top-end bike technology, and you've got to do that as well if you want to be competitive. Music. You can listen to anything, anywhere, anytime. Plus there are so many genres and unheard of stuff out there that you could never have discovered in the past. Pay $10 a month for Spotify, be able to have it DL whatever I want so I can listen to it whenever I want. Pretty sweet compared to when I was growing up. The serialized sitcom. It used to be that sitcoms were a thing you could dip in and out of an episode at a time, but more and more sitcoms are leaning into the idea that they can tell a complete narrative. See, You're the Worst, The Good Place, Atlanta, BoJack Horseman. The results are sitcoms with a lot of depth to them that you didn't see quite so often before. I love that serialized sitcoms can do effective comedy callbacks rather than having to do something repeatedly to be a running gag. Access to food. Consider this. Obesity is a problem for the poor in the USA. Never before have so many people had access to in excess of 2,500 calories for such tiny real wages. For comparison, a French worker in occupied France would have to spend a week's wages in order to have a single meal of 2,500 calories. Animated adult shows. Back in the 90s. Lots of things that were mentioned here are likely to get even better in the future, and if that is so, then this hardly qualifies as its golden age. So my choice would be Moore's Law. We live in the golden age in which transistors have already become really small, but are still getting even smaller. Sooner or later Moore's Law will be pushed to the physical extreme, and we will no longer be able to count on significant improvements to computing power and information storage in the future. In 2018, a $2,000 desktop PC will probably last a normal person 6 years, if not more. 16 years ago, that was not the case. A 6-year-old computer in 2002 would pretty much be obsolete. Guitars. Despite the fact Gibson is tanking and their quality control has gone to crap, Guitars overall and the rest of the industry is definitely getting better for cheaper. For people who don't know anything about guitars, but are curious, hear me out. Back in the old days about 20 years ago and longer, when you had a low-end guitar, it was guaranteed to be a pose. You had to get rid of it ASAP. The only reason why you played it at all was because you were dead broke and it was the only thing you could get your hands on. The quality of mid-range guitars was spotty at best. Thanks to modern manufacturing techniques with CNC machines, the most expensive process in making quality guitars has come down considerably. Thanks to this, the quality of mid-range priced guitar from $500, $1,000 is now excellent. The quality of low-end guitars below $500 is actually good, which is saying a lot. You can actually buy a starter guitar between $100, $200. That doesn't sound like crap. It won't be great, but it will be just good enough to give you a taste of what that instrument is capable of doing. And from there, if you later upgrade to a $500, $1,000, the quality there is consistently good enough to be professional. There are excellent instruments out there at affordable prices that are less than a brand new computer. Now is an excellent time to take up playing IMHO. See also, amps, pedals, affordable, reliable, light, solid state amps that sound good. I honestly feel like we're maybe 10-15 years away from valve amps becoming the classic cars of the music world. Beer. There have been so many developments with new types and flavors, and there are so many breweries popping up everywhere. Even just in my time as a legal drinker, so roughly the last decade, in the UK, the expectations have gone from your local pub serving 2 or 3 draft beers, all huge names, to serving at least a couple of craft or craft-ish beers, along with a healthy selection of bottles. Also, beer festivals now seem to be everywhere. Even my local church hosts one a couple of times a year. Subscription television services, especially for sport. They are great. Instant HD or even 4K content available on a handful of stable platforms. But we are on the cusp of it becoming a huge minefield. Dozens of different subscription services, each with their own little niche. If you want to see everything, then you will need a subscription to all of them. Definitely television and video games. Television. The most options we've ever seen. Aside from that, it seems that every network is producing high quality shows. Between Netflix, Hulu, HBO, Amazon, AMC, literally almost every network, there is a golden show worth watching that is as high quality in terms of production as movies. Video games. Again, a ton of options. Indie games are everywhere. There's a type of game for everyone, from puzzle to card games to FPS. They get actors to play in the stories. The writing is phenomenal. The graphics and settings for games keeps wowing me. There's almost too many that I don't have time to play everything I want. Call of Duty had Kevin Spacey in it a few years ago. Ignoring his scandal, that's insane to me. That they had one of the most well-known actors in film be a character in Call of Duty is crazy to me. Fuzzy blankets. There are the softest, fuzziest, cuddliest blankets ever all over the stores right now. Even 5 years ago the blankets weren't this soft. I don't know how to phrase this, but I thought it was amazing the other day when an old man who was colorblind got to wear a pair of those glasses that enables him to see color. It brought tears to my eyes, honestly. It was just so amazing watching him get excited while wearing them. Hey, my GF bought me a pair of these, and now I finally understand that purple and green are different than red. Oh hey, this question popped up again fast. I'll say again what I signed up to say the first time. Astronomy and cosmology. It's hard to believe, but it's only been 20 years since we discovered that the universe's expansion is accelerating. Before then it was a possibility that the expansion could reverse and the universe would end in a big crunch. The first exoplanets were only discovered in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Even 30 years ago it was easy to think that planets, and Earth-like planets in particular, were incredibly rare occurrences in the universe. But now we've discovered thousands of exoplanets. It started with huge, Jupiter-plus exoplanets closely orbiting small stars. But as our technology has improved, we've been able to detect smaller planets orbiting further from their stars. and can even infer what some of their atmospheres contain. We've already found super Earth-sized exoplanets orbiting in the habitable zone of their parent stars. I am eagerly awaiting the day the JWST telescope goes into operation, because I'm betting the discovery of Earth-sized exoplanets, with oxygen in their atmosphere and orbiting in the habitable zone of a sun-like star, won't be far behind. Also, as our imaging of the cosmic microwave background gets more precise, we've been able to refine the accuracy of our measurement of the age and matter distribution of the universe. Our most recent full sky measurement of the CMB is from the Planck probe in 2013, and new telescopes and research projects are set to improve upon it. And we detected gravitational waves just 2 years ago, and we're close to being able to directly image a black hole. And there's probably another few dozen groundbreaking discoveries that I can't even remember right now. All in all, the past 20-some years have been an absolute golden age of cosmological discoveries, and with improved techniques and theories, and the exponential increase of computing power to back them up, the next 20 years are looking to be just as golden. Starting with Hubble and progressing through adaptive optics, we right now are in an unprecedented, amazing explosion of our knowledge of astronomy, and since LHC physics, now maybe a platinum age will happen later, but what is happening now is almost taken for granted when it is actually profoundly historical. Pornography, smartphones, IoT devices, platforms like Snapchat, and augmented reality and VR have lowered the barriers of entry to pornographic material production and distribution in ways that were not thought possible, as well as exponentially increasing possibilities and variety. It's a golden age because new ground is being broken, but presumably, after VR becomes common, things will stabilize and not much progress will be made as tech stagnates. Once VR becomes common, we have to work on AR. Augmented reality is the next step after VR. Buying marijuana, Canada. It's about to be legalized, taxed and sold through provincial dispensaries. For the next 6 weeks we can still buy an amazing variety of products online from any source, at very competitive prices and have it shipped through the mail. Also, though technically illegal, you'd have to be a real idiot for Johnny Law to pursue charging you for any weed crimes at this point. Holy crap. Legalization is just 6 weeks away. The 17th of October didn't seem that close until now. I can't wait to tell my grandkids about the days where I had to get into a car with some sketchy guy and listen to his rambles just to toke up. Nerdy crap being cool. The same hobbies that someone would get bullied for are incredibly popular and cool now. If someone said they enjoy D&D, Pokemon, video games, and board games 10 years ago, they'd be ridiculed. Now it feels like it's the norm. Similarly, it feels like professions involving coding and technology are considered much cooler than they used to be. The studio glass art movement is in the middle of a modern-day renaissance thanks to the legalization of cannabis and the artistic pipe makers around the country. The traditional lamp-working field and lesser-known scientific field was slowly disappearing as the modern masters got older with few apprentices to pass the techniques on to. A combination of the 2008 financial crisis and an abundance of cheap imported art had affected the sales market in studio fine art glass. The glass pipe making scene was small and largely underground after the FBI ran Operation Pipe Dreams, where dozens of glassblowers around the country were arrested for producing drug paraphernalia. Most notably Tommy Chong for a bong company a family member ran. Many were scared to use their real names and an iron curtain sprung up. Between the internet, social media, and a Netflix documentary titled Degenerate Art, a new generation of hungry young artists sprung up, learning techniques through YouTube, Facebook groups and their degenerate friends. Like most things brought to the extreme, a few folks got very talented and the medium has been consistently pushed on a monthly, if not weekly basis at this point. Some of the most incredible pieces of art are now functional pieces and sell for upwards of $100,000. Artists fly around the world to collaborate with the best of the US, Japan and Europe, and the collectors are not far behind with stacks of cash to give to their favorite artist for a unique one-of-a-kind art piece. It took years for the pipe making scene to gain the respect of the studio art practitioners of yesteryear, but they are now actively making functional art as well. Robert Mickelson is a well-known studio artist that changed his opinions on pipe making. A once underground industry is now thriving and ballooning with trade shows, events, private gallery openings and dozens of other opportunities to bring the community together worldwide. Artists to look for on social media: Banjo, Buck, Rose Rhodes, Junichi Kojima, Yoshinori Kondo, Disc, Sato Daisuke, Salt, Mika Evans, Char Glass, Robert Mickelson, AKM, Elbow, Peter Muller, Joe Peters, and countless others. There has never been a better time to be a lamp worker, glassblower. The superhero movie. I know, there are complaints that the market is oversaturated, but think back to the early 2000s and the quality of the superhero films we were getting then. Now we live in a world where you can hear that there's a new superhero movie coming out and reasonably expect it to be a fun way to spend 2 hours. Every time I think I tire of hero movies, one of them pulls me back in. Marvel Phase 2, with the exception of Guardians, felt really tired and like the genre was dying, and other studios weren't that great then. Then Marvel knocked it out of the park with Doctor Strange, Guardians 2, Spider-Man 4, Black Panther, and Infinity War. I got pulled back in so hard. We're definitely in a golden age of powerful cars. We're right in the middle of a horsepower war. You can get a Mustang for $35K that has more horsepower than Lambo from 30 years ago. Hellcat Chargers with 700 plus horsepower go for roughly $70K. I mean crap, even Camrys have 300 horsepower now. Was going to say horsepower, not sports cars. There have been better feeling cars before now, but horsepower. Muscle cars. The previous golden age of muscle cars was late 60s early 70s, and it might be hard to argue that this one is objectively better, but as far as ride quality, performance, bang for your buck, looks, and options go, this is a great time to be a Mustang, Camaro, Challenger, Charger owner. Maybe Corvettes too, but they're treading into supercar territory now. And then there's all the workshops breathing new life and power into the old classics, amazing restoration projects going on everywhere, and so on. They're wildly popular too. Can't go anywhere without seeing a newish Mustang. Manga and comics. They were recently recognized as the 9th art form, and in 2009 a manga artist made it into the Louvre. Football, soccer, though we may be at the tail end of it, the quality both Ronaldo and Messi have given us over the last 10 years at Madrid and Barcelona have been magnificent, and I wish they could play on forever. Television. I think some of the best television shows have been made over the past 10 years or so. Already there's more and more streaming services, fragmenting the market. Someone will figure out how to do DLC microtransactions with a TV show. 10 extra minutes I've got for $1.99. It would just be some subplot, and that will seep into making the show not worth watching unless you spend the extra money per episode. You ever have a moment when you have your first thought of the next big idea, or how the future will look? I had literally never thought of microtransactions in TV until your comment, and now I weep for the future. You have opened my eyes, friend. I will be on the lookout for when this inevitably becomes reality. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.